session for the City of Trinidad Tourism Board at 9:01. You want to take the roll, Marty?
Campbell?
Here.
Press?
Here.
Latrell?
Here.
Zeches?
Here.
Michaels?
Here.
Items for discussion today would be the 2021 Tourism Board budget. How would you like to start this, Marty?
I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl real quick,
Okay.
so she can get her presentation done and get back to what she does.
Okay.
So, but real quick, what I've provided in your packets is the worksheet that Cheryl provided with us previously. And then I have reports for beginning January 1, 2020 through today or yesterday when I printed them. So you will have a history of what's gone on between now and January. And that's just so that you know what's been spent so far this year, so you can have an idea of what we've done, what's been historically done, and then we'll go through setting budgets for each line item.
Okay, can you kind of see that?
Yes.
You can see the numbers okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, alrighty. I haven't projected tourism tax because I don't know what's gonna happen.
Okay.
Through May, well, first quarter we received 56,000. I can't tell you, I can't remember what was projected, but I think it was about 9,000 less than last first quarter. Again, like I said, I don't know where to go with the projected. If you all have any ideas, let me know.
What was 2019? What was
337,000.
What was for the first quarter? Do you have
About 65, I think.
65?
Yes.
So we're off how much from the
About 9,000.
9,000?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
From last quarter.
From last quarter.
First quarter of 2019.
From the receipts that you have received, is it kind of down?
Oh yeah. Well, one of them was significantly lower, and then the others were lower, maybe by 30%. So if you know, it was only 10 days of March that it happened.
So April, May, and June, just to keep everybody up, isn't collected till July 15th. Has anybody sent theirs in yet?
We only have one, which is very surprising. Usually we get them by the 20th.
Yeah.
So we've only received one.
And the second quarter is the one that's going to be severely impacted.
Yes.
Right, that's the one we're going to see that's way lower.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm showing Cheryl about 69,487 total is what we have in the bank right now.
Right. That's one person that's paid, or one property that's paid.
Plus the first quarter.
Yes. And I just really don't know where to go here. We could wait to see what our second quarter.
I think that's what's gonna determine is that second quarter as to it. Because if we have two quarters as opposed to one, I think we would get a better handle, because that's our best quarter is the third quarter, right?
Yes.
Would be, and that would be not till September.
That's right.
And then the last quarter usually drops off significantly.
It's very similar to the first quarter.
The first quarter. Okay.
We just don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to shut down again? I mean, we could throw in an arbitrary number of 200,000. I don't know.
I personally think, just being in the business, that 260, 250 sounds like a reasonable figure for us.
Okay, we could do that. And then for next year, do we want to just go right back to 325,000?
Maybe just keep it at 250, because we still really have no idea what it's going to. And is that a right thing to kind of lowball instead of go high? We don't.
I normally lowball,
okay.
just because I
Yeah, I would lowball.
It's better, because then that would, if we do
Have the excess.
we would be good.
Okay.
It would be like us when we revised the budget, we took a lot out to
And when so this is a work session, obviously, and then when is the total budget is due in September? When is it due? August? Or is it?
Yes, August 1st.
August 1st.
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay, that's good, okay.
Well, it's the preliminaries due August 1st. We can tweak it all the way through, you know, when we finally present to the board, which we try to present at the first meeting in November.
Okay.
Alrighty, so that kind of gives us our working base for revenue. I don't believe any grants are coming forward. And we're back to our welcome center. So I did update these to, this is through July 22nd.
You really did a great job, Cheryl, thank you so much. A question I have is, and advertising and publications, total activity for 2019 is $66,000, but our budget shows for 25,000, and we've spent 31 already, so our projected amount should be higher than that for 2021.
And actually you're at 36,000 through July.
Right, okay, so see, it's even higher than that. So, you know.
Well, if we could start up with outside contract services first, that is the person that does your website. And then I'm not sure, last year the 37,000 includes the additional 10,000 that we used for that with our grant. The
That's
grant.
to the matching grant.
Or 10 or 15?
It was 15.
Yes.
Alright, so that includes that. You actually have 100,000 budgeted. Do you remember what that's for?
That was because generally what's in the, how the paperwork was written, the tourism board is actually obligated to hire an outside marketing agent. And that hasn't been done in some time. And I know in 2017, that outside contract services line was used to print the visitor guide.
Right.
So, and that, you probably need to discuss what you're gonna do with the visitor guide, because we do need to do a new reprinting. And I know Studio 6 did not only the visitor guide, but they did branding, and they did the website, and that total, from the paperwork that I have here, was a total of $51,220.
But I just want to clarify something, just because we have new board members so they understand it. So the tourism law does say that we need to entertain a outside marketing entity, but it doesn't say the certain amount, and technically we still have, by doing KCRT and some of those that we've done up north, KRTO. So it just doesn't say if we have to do it by 2% or 100%, but it says we should do that. And we do it in different forms. We just do more work right now, or Marty does more work than when we had somebody, because we do a little here and a little different marketing entities, you know, even advertising with the Chronicle News is a marketing entity, so just wanted to.
Does this include Christy Rogers then too?
It does right now,
This is
yes.
hers as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, thanks, Marty.
Was there a balance last year from outside services, or did we use all of it?
I was just gonna go back to last year to see if there's any notes, and nope, we don't have any notes. So last year, outside, we budgeted 45 and spent 37.
Okay.
And then, again, I kinda think that we had some leftover funding, and we just threw what was left over, because we were trying to balance the budget,
Right.
threw it into that line item.
I don't know what anybody thinks about this, but our advertising seems to always go over every year. So I would like to take some of that money from outside contracts and put it in the advertising. That way it balances it out. I don't know how everybody feels about that. Instead of us going over budget every year on that we could try to balance the whole thing. Say we add, we're down 15,000 on that now, right? 15,000.
So what we've spent, to date in outside contract services is
2,600.
2,600.
Right,
And that's, so basically a half a year, so 6 months.
right.
So, and that outside contract services we've used right now for, Christy Rogers for doing the website.
Mhm.
So if we double that for the remainder of the year, we'll be looking at about 5,000.
Mhm.
And then if you consider what you need to spend on your new visitor guide, based on what this one cost at 51,000, that brings you up, to about almost 60,000. So if we originally budgeted for 2020 100,000, you could move 40,000 into
I would
your
just,
advertising and publications line.
it seems to be running around 15 to 18,000 over for the last 2 years. So I think with us not having to go into another session next year, that we could balance it out, say, 17 or 18,000 to where it could possibly balance it out for the year.
And we could pull from other places too, we don't have to just pull
Right.
from this line item.
Right,
We
but
could, right?
what I'm trying, yeah, I agree with you. What I'm trying to see is that we can, we've seen for the last 2 years that that's where we've been overspent in that area, and we balance it out now. And like you say, take from other areas a certain amount from each area to straighten that one out. Cause that one seems to be the only problem that we.
It basically is the only area I think that we overdraw on, Cheryl,
Right.
is that about right?
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah.
and since there's a significant amount left in, outside contract services. Now, do we renew a contract every year with the face?
It would be my recommendation, and I think that's probably, protocol as well, that you have to put it out for bid, when you're doing large contracts like that, so we'll have to get 3 bids to redo the the visitor guide.
Yeah.
Studio 6 is, in my research, it's pretty high. So we might be lucky to find somebody a little bit lower. On the other hand, this was 2 years ago, so things might have,
Change.
costs might have changed, for printing and paper and things like that, so.
Up and down,
And
because-
down.
Yeah, I mean,
It could've
people
went down
wanna
because
do-
there isn't
so we
anything
don't
going
really
on.
know, right, good point though.
Yeah, we're not
Right.
quite sure. So if you figure you're gonna spend in outside contract services, money for printing and, the design for the visitor guide, plus taking some out for your advertising and marketing line, I wouldn't change that line too much.
Yeah. I just feel like, we could, Amanda said we could take so much from each one, or something from each one, if it's possible. But I think to get to, since that's the one area where we seem to be spending the money, is that area, to add more money to it, is the thing. And, cause I think the year before we ran into the same problem,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I think this year, I think we should be able to try to straighten that out.
So if you look at your 2018 and your 2019 lines on your sheet, you'll see that in 2018, 75,000 was budgeted, only 35,000 was spent. 45,000 was budgeted in 2019, only 37,000 was spent.
And those are
Right
years
now in
we-
2020, we had 100,000 budgeted and we've only spent 20 something right now.
Right.
Marty, a question, so in the 2019 total activity, is that $37,000 figure? Do you know if that, has the KRDO large contract embedded in there?
Yes. Well,
2019 should.
I think so, yes.
2019.
The only other place it would have been in advertising and publication, but I'm pretty sure we did outside contract services for that one, yeah.
2018.
So are we in, kind of an agreement to do something like that?
Sure. I'm nowhere near there yet.
Okay.
I've got a couple things here. First, in the column of 2018, under the Visitor Welcome Center, I have all zeros on my form. I have no numbers.
Well, we're not in Welcome Center yet.
Next.
Can we address these other two first?
The next part of what I would like to say is, I came to this meeting, I spent time to look at this information, but I purely did not know the agenda of where we're going with this. So I'll follow that by asking this question. Are we trying to prepare 2021 budget?
Right.
Are we reviewing for the rest of 2020?
No, the budget's already set for 2020. We're reviewing for 2020.
Right.
Yes,
So we
ma'am.
have to project 2020 to get to 2021.
Correct?
So that's why the column in 2020 projected is blank. So we're going through right now, and you kind of just need to give me some guidance. Do you think you're going to spend all $70,000 in? Oops, I put it in the wrong spot. Oh no. So $36,000 through July 22nd. If you double that, give or take, it's going to be about $70,000 for the year. Is that are those contracts still up and running? Because I know you pulled back on some spending.
We did pull back. We pretty much froze everything that we had been doing for advertising and publications.
But there's obligations because you're
right,
in
there's
contracts.
encumbrances, right.
So will we hit the $70,000 this year? Did you anything cut back?
I think we have two contracts that are still, whose invoices still need to be paid
For the remainder
for the remainder of 2020.
And how much are they per person, do you know?
I don't right offhand, sure.
Who are they, Mark?
True West. We have True West and I do Colorado Life, but I think Colorado Life is only $1,500.
So $29.95 is True West. Is that per month, do you know?
No, that's a one-time.
So, or is, so we don't have to pay them anymore this year?
We do. We have one more ad that's going to be running,
Okay.
and then we've already committed to that contract. So there's one more ad.
Okay, then anything else you think of? Who was the other one?
Is Colorado Life in there already? So it'd be Flagship Publishing?
$1,600?
Yes. I thought it was 15, but you're right, it's probably 16.
And is that every month or
And that's
once a year?
that's twice a year. So we've
Twice a
already
year.
paid once, we'll have one more.
Okay.
Those are
So,
the only two we have remaining.
alright, so then we would take the 36 plus those two. Okay.
Does that include like our monthly, like the invoices that we approve every, like KCRT, we just got on a contract for, didn't we?
Yes, we
So
did.
doesn't that include all the rest of those two every month, or?
I'm not sure how that's paid. I don't know if that's paid in 2021 or if it's paid in 2020.
You're in a contract now with KCRT?
Right, so they're on a fiscal calendar. So KCRT is coming
We
up.
should be paying them, how much is that?
And that was 4,000. We agreed to do a baseline of 4,000, right, Tom?
Yes.
For the year or
For the fiscal
For
year.
the fiscal year.
Full year, yeah.
This
And their fiscal year starts in July.
July.
I thought I'd point out
Would that be 2,000 then? July
Scott
to
and
December
Amanda, that if you look at the 2018 budget.
I could arrange that, yes.
Sorry, just a minute. I wanna make sure, are we caught up over there?
Mhm.
Yes, go ahead.
Just because it occurred to me, it might make a little bit more logical just to you guys, on the 2018 budget, it shows the Visitor Welcome Center with 0 cost because at that point we weren't overseeing it. But if you drop down further, wages regular, you'll see some wages in there, because when Jonathan was here and a few other people, the city still took some of their wages out of tourism. And that's the reason why it shows wages under tourism for 2018, but it doesn't for 2019 or 2020. Yet, up above, under the Welcome Center, it shows those fees. So you can, when you look at that, it's just, so that makes sense to you.
So
And
then
You'll see
if-
zeros in the next two columns.
If I understand what you said correctly, in the Department 4194 Visitor Welcome Center in 2018, those items were not the responsibility of the tourism board.
Correct.
I'm assuming it was the city at that time, or it
Correct.
was the state funding?
It was the city.
Okay.
We lost state funding in what, 2017 or 16?
Yes, but the Welcome Center was also closed for a period of time too. So there was no management of the Welcome Center for a period, and I believe that was,
But it just, I was just trying to explain why there's a bunch of zeros there.
Thank
so
you
that
very
it
much.
makes sense to you.
That certainly answers part of the questions that I have. Continuing on, in the column where it says 2020 actual through May, is that actual budget or projected?
Spent.
And then the projected column, I see that it's on the screen there, but we don't have anything in that column.
That's what we're working on now.
that's what we're doing now.
Okay, so this is kind of, from your perspective, that's the point of this meeting, is to fill in the projected
blanks.
2020 expenditures so that we can start to look at 2021. Is that correct? So now I have enough perspective of what's going on here, then I would ask this question, which now, Tom, comes back to you. As we look at these line items, whether it's building repair and maintenance or outside contract services, who knows the details of all of these line items, so that when we look at 2018 and we see big disparities or separations, in 2019 we don't see them, or we do see them, who is the one that understands what is going on here? Do you follow what I'm saying?
It would be Cheryl more than because she's doing the numbers.
So,
But we discuss them, and some of us know, we remember, we discuss them.
okay, so then in 2019, when we look at outside contract services, and I pick on that one because I believe it's where we started, there was a $45,000 budget in 2019. What we actually spent was only $37,600. In an interest to get, Tom, what I think you're looking for going forward, which is a closer result of those two columns, then we need to understand some of what's happening. Just as Cy mentioned, well, all of those numbers were zero previously because it wasn't our responsibility, but now it is. That's okay that it is, but you know, as we look at a copier, so in 2019 they budgeted only $600, but they spent $2,200. I'm not picking on the copier by any stretch. It's just an example of, look at the difference. It's nearly 4 times the expenditure. So those are line items. Office supplies went from 200 to almost 700. So as we go through all of these line items, we really need to clearly understand why health insurance went from a budget of $23,000 down to $9,700. And this is what's going to bring you closer across the board moving forward. And I think it's very important what you're talking about, because we're looking at a time when we've got to be very critical about all our expenditures, as well as to better forecast. And of course, having Cy here is a huge benefit to this. What are we seeing now for hotel revenue in the with the second quarter completed already? Yes.
Well, we can't see that because we don't have those numbers.
No, but
You know,
You know,
you
but
just
our-
don't when you don't have something in front of you,
Right,
you can't.
I
And
get
it's even
that.
scared to project off of something that you don't have, you know what I mean?
But I would bet, Si, that you probably have some idea on what's happening with the hospitality, or what has happened, you know.
Well, I think that I feel really comfortable for us to all, shoot for 250, 260 for a budget for this year. I think that we're gonna see
Which would be a shortfall of 75,000.
yeah.
And,
So there-
and
so
I just
there's-
wanna clarify, excuse me,
No, no,
I
it's
just
okay.
wanna clarify that for the whole 2020 year, you think the reality of revenue is gonna be about 250,000?
I think we're gonna see about a 25% tax hit, and if our tax rate's been running about 325, I think I'm comfortable to go down to about 260.
Okay, so does that mean?
Of course, we don't know what, again, will happen with this in the fall, but the hotels in the month of July in Trinidad are very strong and everybody's getting their rate back. April and May is where we heard the most, and that's what will be reflected in this month's taxes as they start coming in, I think.
So having that, then it's all we have.
Right.
Is a best guess, educated.
That's it, when you don't have
Yeah.
hard numbers in front
Right.
of you, you can't base anything on.
So having that is, and I would absolutely go with what you're saying, because you're the expert at it here, so, then to look at these line items, whether we backwards plan it or, we go forward and add it up and make them adjustments, but we need to look at some of these columns. Now, as I understand in the Welcome Center, we have reduced some of the costs, partially labor and also some operating costs. So,
We reduced some of the labor because Jeff went from the Welcome Center to another department in the city. But that was for what, 2 months, 3 months?
Almost two.
Almost 2 months. And then he went back to the Welcome Center when they opened, so that was probably the only cost that was reduced. And I don't know if you were able to go into the contract of cleaning the.
No, it was a signed contract.
It was a
couldn't
signed
adjust
contract,
it.
so he continued on, or?
He was cleaning once a week, basically, and then I gave him some additional duties, some, more thorough cleaning duties, since
So
there
that-
was no staff there, or it wasn't open.
So
So
that
I had
was-
him do some extra cleaning duties.
So that was one of the areas that we thought we could cut, but we couldn't. So, and then the rent for the trolley, we weren't able to cut that because that continues on, because it is. But the labor from it running it through the summer was cut, and so was the gas and the fuel and probably the maintenance
okay.
was
Well,
cut from the budget of the Welcome
And staff
Center.
costs, so wages, insurance, and that sort of stuff, we could eliminate.
So then we cut $60,000 from the grants and new grants. We kept $10,000, and I think we have.
So are
probably-
these items that you're mentioning, are they shown or depicted here on this form?
On hers on the projected.
On the projected
As
column.
we move along.
So Cheryl, can you go to Department 4800 under the category of tourism?
Yes.
Why are all those numbers zeros there? Right where
You
your
don't
cursor
pay
is.
wages out of tourism.
Excuse me?
Wages are not paid for tourism out of 4,800, they're paid above under the Welcome Center.
Okay, that's helpful.
I do have a question, Cheryl.
Yes.
In the 2020 total budget column, is that the budget column for 2020 total, or is it as of June 30th? So those amounts are, like, my question is for the regular wages, did we budget 44,000 and we've spent 16, or did we budget 88 and
No,
spent?
we budgeted 44.
That's the whole year, okay.
Mhm.
one more question, to clarify. So if we're ideally, last year said we can predict that 2020 is gonna give us 325, but we're actually only gonna be working with 250. We essentially need to get rid of $75,000 in the working budget, in the projections, is that right? And we almost have, if we got rid of 60,000 just in, the festival funding. That
Right.
takes away the big,
But-
you know, but
but-
that's kind of what we're trying to do, right?
but-
Is we're
Right, but
reworking the
do,
budget to get back to the projection of what we will actually have at the end of the year.
but do we wanna get rid of that 60,000 if
Things get back to
if
normal
things get back
next
to
year.
normal by next year?
And
See, that's where I'm
And-
confused.
And
is that how
people
is
come in
that-
and ask them for grants,
I
you know?
think that, for me, I think what Tom's saying is the biggest question on there, is
You
that
know.
we could easily do it by taking 60,000, but do we as a board want to take 60,000 from local funding when
Right.
we think that's when we'll really need it next year to help
See,
people?
and-
So where else in the budget do we get that money?
Why do we why, if we took it away from the 2020 budget, why does it affect 2021 if we're making, I'm confused on that, I guess that just.
We took it away from the 2020 budget
Right,
because there is no activity.
right, but
Right.
why would that affect next year's budget? What does that have to do with next year's
Well, you brought
taxes?
up to get from 260 from the 325, that we would pull a big portion of that from that. I don't see that we want to do that because if everything is back to normal by next spring and people come asking for grants, that's who we wanna support.
Right, but
You
my
know.
question is, I don't understand,
Yeah.
I understand that completely, but my question is, why do figures from this year, from taxes from this year, affect taxes from next year? That doesn't make sense to me. Does my question make sense or
Yeah,
not?
I think I see your question, I'm not quite sure how, or I see a question
Does
out
that
there
make
that I
sense to you?
think is clear, but I don't know if it is
Maybe
a question you're
Cheryl
asking.
can- she can answer the
I don't,
question.
is that,
Okay.
you've got two
Go
things
for
in
it.
your
Just
head,
interrupt.
2020 is separate.
Right.
And 2021 is what we're working on, but the figures are just shown here for 2020, so they're kind of confusing.
Okay, so maybe this is my fault. Maybe you just let me work on the projected, figure out where we end up. I just wanted to see how much fund balance you'll have at the end of the year, because what is unspent and what's earned, the difference hits fund balance. So with your fund balance, typically what happens, you budget 325,000 for the year in revenue, and then you offset it with 325,000 in expenses. Well, now, we're going with 200, well, are you okay with that side for 250 for 2021?
260, I think is
For 21?
yeah, okay.
So now we have 260,000 in revenue, we need to, get $260,000 in expenses. But because you have a significant fund balance, you would be able to increase your expenses by that amount, by a certain amount if you chose to. You'd be able to dip into fund balance if
It's like a savings
250 is
account.
not enough.
And, do I bring up the welcome center in the city council?
So
Well,
it's
here's-
kind of
And,
savings.
yeah.
Here's
We have 100 grand in the bank.
another thing though.
I'm still not catching it, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm just
one of
not
the
getting it.
things that we're trying to do is project the budget, but we're also here to go to the city. We're spending $100,000 on our welcome center. We wanna go to the city and ask them for help. Alright?
Here's one of the things about that right there. The city gave us 2 grants in 2019 and 2020, is that right? We got
One was for the
50,000.
visitor profile study for Buxton, and the second was for the RTM bicycle,
But as for running the
For
welcome,
running the welcome center.
welcome center, we got some marijuana money as,
that
Did
was
we
for.
get any money in 2020 from them?
What was funded by the city for my position was event coordinator, and I believe it was 30,000 or 25, Sean.
we're not receiving that funding
Okay, so,
No.
okay.
this year for 2021. So,
Yeah, you are.
Yes.
So Jeff and Marty are both budgeted employees through tourism.
right,
Welcome Center tourism.
Right.
Only a portion of Marty's is sitting in tourism. I wanna say 26% sits in tourism, the rest sits in marijuana. So technically, Jeff and Marty's salaries probably would be 88,000. But because we're paying her out of marijuana, you're only seeing Jeff's salary and a portion of Marty's.
Right.
So
Do
that's
you-
how
do you
you're
have-
seeing the grant.
Do you have a clear amount of what that is
Mhm.
from last year's budget, the total?
It's in our tourism book. I'm sorry,
Our budget book.
our budget book. So Marty's
Like-
position is 26% out of this budget, and the remaining 74% is paid out of general fund. And then Jeff's 100% salary is in.
And that will continue in 2021.
Yes.
Okay, so,
I'm pretty sure there's 3 people paid out of marijuana, and I'm pretty sure Marty's portion is $50,000.
so, go ahead.
Cheryl, and just to clarify, for an example, I know we're hopping out all over the place here, but for, the, wages regular, for 2020 total budget, it says we have $44,000 to spend, that's for the full year. And actual through May, we've spent 16. So if we were to look at that with running the same way that we're currently running, that will end up, since that's only 5 months, that will end up being around 40,000.
So, I'm gonna say yes, cause through July 22nd, you've spent 20,000.
Okay.
And then I just kinda doubled it, I think it's gonna come in a little bit under, but we have an extra pay period this month,
Right.
so it's gonna skew it a little.
Now Cheryl, when Jeff left, to another department, he was paid out of another department
That's
at
correct.
that time?
Mm-hmm, he's paid out of Public Works.
Okay.
I really didn't calculate the difference, but I can actually go back and check it out, and I'll tweak this a little bit later.
So
I'm not
maybe-
sure how much we
Maybe you can help me out with this, for me understanding.
Mm-hmm.
When, the tourism board took on the Welcome Center, I have an understanding now that a portion of that money was gonna come out of tourism. But I can remember them saying that a portion was given to us to offset Marty's wages. Now, that's because she wore the hats, the different hats that she wore.
That's how it's given to you.
That's how it's given.
We're paying her from a different fund than from tourism.
And now that's gonna continue, you tell me.
Yes.
Because in the past, they said that that wasn't gonna continue, so.
That part I don't know. I just know.
I haven't heard otherwise. I know the event coordinator portion of it was, budgeted into the marijuana.
So that's a clarification that I need to know that portion is gonna continue for the Welcome Center, and then the portion that we have is gonna continue. That's the only misunderstanding that I have always had about the Welcome Center and the Tourism Board. And those two things with that is what I wanted to clarify today, is the funding for that.
All I know is that council said we need the event coordinator to put so much marijuana money away each year. We assume that it's carried forward next year. That's how we will budget next year, assuming that that's there. We just wouldn't know that answer until first quarter marijuana of 2021, which we could vote on in April.
Mm-hmm.
But the likelihood of them going back and saying, well, no, we're not gonna give that money is very slim.
Mm-hmm. So, cause that was the understanding that I always had, that we were going to make a presentation to the city council as for the continuing funding of that portion. But if we don't, and if it's in there, we don't have to make that presentation to the city council.
Well, when we present this budget, we can actually say based on the assumption that $50,000 is still gonna be received from marijuana for the event coordinator.
Now, in the city's budget that we received, I didn't see the line item for that for Marty.
It's in the marijuana.
It's in the marijuana under general fund.
Okay. So that was just my only understanding of that, of the monies for that. If I could get a clarification from that. You know,
Okay,
that's.
so, Claire, do you need me to
That
make
it's
copies
gonna
of those
continue.
pages? Oh, that is.
That it's gonna continue, yes.
I'd like to go back just to review some of what you just said so that I heard correctly. The Welcome Center staff, Marty and Jeff, when I look at the numbers on this form here that talk about under the column of 4194 wages regular, that dollar amount, 2020 is budgeted at 44,500. 26%, that equals the 26%, or?
It's 100% of Jeff's salary and 26% of Marty's.
The dollar number 44,500 equals 100% of Jeff.
Yes.
Sorry, let me take a moment just to make a note of what you just said. 44,500 equals 26% of Marty and 100% of Jeff.
Yes.
And in addition, Marty holds a position at the city as an event coordinator and is paid $50,000, is that correct?
Well, including fringe, $50,000 is allocated toward that position.
That's fine.
Which is, which would be 74% plus fringe.
And that's paid out of the marijuana money general fund?
Yes.
Okay, just a moment, please.
I might add something too, since we're in that area and you're
Please.
writing notes. And so if you look at the Visitor Welcome Center, the total amount that was projected for budget for 2020 was $83,310. And if you look at the column next to it, 2020 actual through May, we spent $31,583. So then you tell yourself, since it's 5 months, you're spending about $6,000 a month to keep the Welcome Center open. So the total amount by the end of the year would be about $72,000, and we have $83,000 budgeted. So we're about $10,000 in the black, under budget for the end of the year as an estimation when you're just looking at the operations of the Welcome Center. Does that help a little bit?
Oh, it absolutely does. I'm absolutely trying to grab two concepts here being new. One is the details of the dollar amounts, whether it actually is a dollar or a percentage. That's great. The other thing of it is to try to understand, because this is all created in days before myself, is the configuration of the Welcome Center and the staff that's there and how they're compensated and what are their duties and responsibilities. This thing is an event coordinator. That's a new one for me.
Well, basically that
It doesn't affect
That
us.
doesn't affect us at all, city
She's
is taking
paid
that.
through the city to take care of that.
Well,
City created that position.
again, let's now step away from the dollar amount and look at this is another hat that she has, and this is time that she has to spend in that category. Is that correct? That part is a new paradigm for me. I didn't know that. I was under the belief that Marty only, prior to today's meeting, Marty worked for the tourism board at the Welcome Center, and that's all that she did. And I understood somewhere there's some kind of dollar amount that the city pays to help run the Welcome Center. But in fact, that's not a true statement based on what information I have today.
One of the things that I could tell, and we probably should tell any of new members that come on, her door is always open. If you have a problem with your communications with your board, any questions you want to ask, Marty would sit down and answer any questions anybody would have to answer. I've gone to Marty and asked her certain things. So I think for us to we want to know things about what we're doing, she has the answers, or she'll find the answers for us.
God, I
Yeah.
understand where you're saying that we're getting $50,000 from the city to pay her wages. It's really not helping us at all, because that event coordinator, which does help us, you know, it helps us, people go to her, to get applications, for applications, different events. I understand when we're saying, we're not really getting that money to help us out at the Welcome Center. That is her wages to help, for the city to hire her to do some work for them. And I understand that part. I understand that part where we're coming from. So technically speaking, Marty is doing work for the city to get that money, and we're not really getting anything towards the Welcome Center from the city to help us out. They're helping out with Marty for her wages because they created that position to help Marty, they wanted that position.
No,
Okay?
they gave the funding so that
They
you
gave
can
the
have
funding to
two
do that.
people there running.
Right, and
Right.
when-
So, I mean, whether you see it as an enhancement or involve event coordinator or tourism manager, director,
Right.
welcome center director,
Right.
that $50,000 is there so that you have those two people full time.
That can go down to the Welcome Center at any time. And there's a lot of people that, for the events, that gotta go to Marty to get the events to go doing things. And that's all part of tourism, you know, regardless.
I mean, she
Camilla,
does,
I'm grateful that
You know.
you got my point that I was trying to get a grip on to, in time to go back to you. If I don't know this information, which prior to today I didn't know, so how could I ever go to Marty and say, hey, explain to me this event coordinator thing. How much time do you devote to that? Because maybe it is a shell game where the city helps fund the tourism board with this title, but maybe Marty doesn't do any work. I don't know, because prior to today I never knew about it.
Well, I do think Marty does work, because the people are gonna fund and come to her, and then she goes to the city to represent that group, or she comes to us. to
As an
represent that
event
group.
coordinator.
As an event coordinator, yeah, she's
So
the one that
roughly,
tells them
help
what they
me
need to do,
understand,
and what
Marty.
they don't need to do.
Yes.
my thing about Marty is what she does for the tourism board, the 26%. That's, what she does for the city and is paid out of the city funding is between her and the events corner.
Yeah.
Her 26%, what she does for us, is all that concerns me.
Well then, yes, I
Right?
absolutely. As
So-
long as want to be totally respectful that says, if the city created that position and the tourism board managers, so that we don't pick on Marty personally, please don't accept it that way. That's certainly not my message here. It's the person that's in that position, just to understand, you know, in a 40-hour week or a 30-hour week or whatever the case may be, what does that 50,000 or what does that event coordinator position represent as an obligation? That is something I think that we should understand that says, because going back to our 26% that we are spending, and we have certain expectations of that, we want to be fair and live within those expectations of what is a reality. And it's a convoluted reality here that at this point in the game doesn't allow me to see that. Absolutely, you're moving in the right direction though. Your points are. So I guess now the question comes to you, Marty. How much time do you devote historically, let's say in 2019, towards being an event coordinator versus the tourism board?
They actually work hand in hand, so I don't split the time that I spend under different hats. I don't try to allocate a certain amount of time to what I do as event coordinator, or what I do as tourism manager, or what I do as welcome center manager.
Okay.
They all mesh.
Okay.
All of the duties are connected in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
And I don't work 40 hours a week. I generally put in anywhere between 48 and 55 hours a week, because I work from home, I work on my days off, I work on weekends, and that was explained to me when I took on the position, that I would be required to attend events that might be on weekends, that I wouldn't get, Saturday and Sunday off like a typical work week. I generally I work on weekends. So it all kind of meshes together.
Okay.
So I couldn't give you a specific amount of time that I spent in any one particular position.
And just so that I get this one little detail, when you were brought into this position, was it both of those hats, or was it just tourism board and then later came the event coordinator position?
The event coordinator position was offered to me 2 months after I took on the position as welcome center manager.
Okay. And so then I rest on all of that. Now I want to bring back one more question. What is the city paying to help the welcome center?
Well, they own the Welcome Center.
Okay, so that's why they decide when it's open and when it's closed?
No,
No.
that's decided by the state, isn't it?
Yes, we operate under a memorandum of agreement with the Colorado Tourism Office.
But they don't fund the
state
welcome
doesn't.
center either.
No, they don't.
And
But
the city doesn't fund it
But
based
to
on
keep
what I
that name
know.
up there,
Sorry?
to keep that name Colorado Welcome Center,
Yeah.
there was an agreement for us to keep that name, that we will work under their umbrella, right?
Yeah.
So we will work on the umbrella, and yes, we do want to keep that name. It is huge on there,
Good.
and it's a go-getter.
Conversely,
And
calling it
doesn't-
the tourism, the Trinidad Welcome Center, correct?
And doesn't the Welcome Center, doesn't the state provide all the brochures?
Yes.
Yes, they provide all the brochures and that, and we didn't want
For
to.
each.
So I believe I provided a copy of the MOA to the tourism board recently.
Right.
So you should have a copy of that
Yes.
MOA, and it explains what is provided by the Colorado Tourism Office. So, what does the Colorado Tourism Office do for us, and what are our responsibilities to remain
And that
a
MOA
state recognized
was
tourism?
signed by the city manager,
Yes, sir.
and presumably, because I don't believe my copy was signed, but his name was there, so.
I can
it's
send you
small.
a final draft with both
No,
signatures.
no, that's okay, just to understand that, let's not. All right, and so then, going back here, the conclusions is, the city is not funding the Welcome Center. They're partially funding Marty's salary because she provides an additional duty to the city, correct?
Right.
And so then she has two hats, presumably two bosses to answer to, for lack of better conversation.
She has one boss.
I have one boss, and that's the city of Trinidad. I don't answer to the tourism board. I am a
Right.
staff member
She's-
that provides services, but I am employed by the city of Trinidad.
So she doesn't answer to us.
So I think we're kind of.
Our budget is just, you guys, we don't have all day for this budget.
Because I have a
don't.
meeting, and I want to get you through this.
Yeah,
And then if you could
I
discuss
agree.
that after, that would be.
yeah, now let's get, let's
Just
see.
operational of the Welcome Center is a big part of the budget, it's why I talk about
It is.
it.
It is, and we're with it, and, we need a,
It's just like Cheryl says, if we could get through this part and then any other questions you can ask.
Okay, so do you want to pick up with the point of, in order to do the projections for the remainder of this year, we have to look at the line items and see where the disparity, where the difference is between what was projected and what is actual, what was budgeted and what is actual, to find 60,000 so that we don't have to take the 60,000 away from the tourism grants.
well, we don't need to take it away necessarily from the Welcome Center.
Well,
What
it's
if we fill in the column end with what we think, you want to spend,
Mhm.
and then we find out if we're over or under, and then we go back and.
We go back and
we
adjust.
rearrange. We take from other line items and put where you want it. So in reality, 2019, your outside contract services ended up being 37,000. Are we gonna be, do you think that's where you wanna be? Should we just put it in, see how it affects the bottom line, then we can go back and shave it out? How do you feel about that?
my only concern is on that is pamphlet that we wanna redo, right?
Right, and we had said it was gonna be around,
So if that is, so what did you say that we're projected to use by the end of the year?
I don't know, I would say $10,000, $700 a month for your web designer is another $4,200, so then I just kinda rounded it up to 10,000.
Okay.
okay.
I don't know if that's good, I can put it at just 2,600, which is 42,
I would do the total.
okay?
And I think we need to project on that outside contract services. Marty, you said it was gonna be around 51,000 to do.
That was, yeah,
to
that was
do it,
what
and
was
you have
done
another
in
6,000, so
2017.
if we up the 37, we've got to up it to at least $60,000 right there, right? Instead of the $100,000 that we projected on 2020, or do we keep it that, or we go down a little less?
I would say 60.
Okay, Cheryl, it looks like you're doing a fantastic job over there.
She said that, and then she comes in with the
I
negative.
would recommend everything that you've done and on the visitor welcome center to just carry those figures over.
Yeah,
from
I agree with
unprojected,
you.
Cause she's within $8,000 anyway by the end of the year, it looks like.
Mhm.
And then the big debate is the following, the Department 4,800. That's really,
Okay, so for advertising and publications, at the end of 2019, you came in at 66,000. We kind of think that you'll be at 42,000 at the end of 2020, but that's because you had to cut back. Do you want to try to another 66,000 for 2021, or go with the 2020 budget of 25,000? Because I don't think that 25,000 was enough.
right.
No, so
Right.
that's where I think that we need to, because of the last 2 years, we've overspent on that.
We've got to go up on that.
So do you feel?
So at
good
least
with
60.
60?
Yeah,
Okay.
at least 60 to project.
Your billboards are always around the same. Do you intend on any more?
We've just attained a new contract.
We just obtained a new contract on the billboards. Did we dump a couple of those?
$748 a month.
We did, but
Okay.
we did
Any
that
other-
earlier on.
Okay.
Is there any
All
other
right.
billboard or just one?
Then the other one that we always have, right?
Right.
I don't
So
know
there's
what
two
that
billboards.
is.
There's the out front billboard, the one that we have just outside of
Trinidad.
north or
No,
south of
cost
Trinidad,
South of Trinidad.
and that cost is in there. That is,
Yeah, we're over there. I would definitely keep it at 60, maybe 60, keep it at 60, 65.
So yeah, we are paying $720, but you said you have a new one, so there's gonna be $720 plus what you just said,
no,
Simon?
the new one is a total of,
$748.
It's 700 every 4 weeks or 748 a month.
right,
Just so I understand, Camilla, then you're looking at roughly 2019 total activity and saying that was what we spent in 2019 and also what our encumbrances are, and saying we better at least budget 65,000 there, right?
Right.
I concur with that.
Mile High.
And then 720 is out front. Billboard?
Yes,
Okay.
but the $748 a month is actually, it's paid, the contract is paid in full for 1 year. So I'll get you the total amount that we're notified. And that, we haven't even given that to you yet.
It's not every month, it's 1 year.
It's
Right?
not.
We did do something like
$748, there's 3 contracts for work with the local bank, and you'll be at $748 a month, but it's paid for a year, so we'll
Right,
have to
so
do that total.
748 times 12, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we look at the outside contract services, and that's where that over $100,000 figure was, and we retained 50 of it to try to work on a new booklet for this year. 50 could come from that line item since we never run into 100.
Right, that's true.
We're an outside.
Outside
Outside
contract,
Tom.
yeah.
So do you want me to leave it at 60?
Can I ask you to close that door?
That's advertising in public
I missed
publication,
what you
I thought
said,
we were
Si.
gonna do it at 6.
The outside contract services.
53,402.
Okay, so
Just
50 out of the
And how much
outside
do you want
contract
back?
services. All right, thank you.
53,402,
How much?
50.
50?
50.
Okay. Thank you. Dues and subscriptions, you had an $89 fee, for 2019, but prior to that was $1,300. Do you know of any dues and subscriptions? I can look them up if you want.
I don't understand anything in that activity.
No, you got something with the credit card. And those. Oh, and then Adobe. Okay, never mind. We could leave that at 100 for dues. I'm not sure what the 89 was.
Okay.
And we can take it out if we have to. Office supplies, in 18, $1,000, 2019, $4,000. Now we're barely, we only even spent 183, but I know everybody's pulled back.
Did we buy new computers or something that year, or copier?
It might have been the contract, but no, copier should go under copier. Office supplies, not quite sure what that was.
Can you go back and look at them, or?
Did you, when we bought t-shirts, where did you put the t-shirts?
That goes under the clothing allowance.
I didn't see no clothing amounts, okay.
That was last year, so.
Oh, you know what, postage, you started using
Oh, I started using that for postage and
Okay.
then we moved it into,
I should send you the postage line. item.
yeah, we probably need a postage line, right?
Would that be better?
Yeah.
So the 2020 budget does, so like you said, 4,000, and we're not showing any trend this year at all. So I would say maybe 2,000 for 2021, what do you think, Tom?
Yes. Now that we found out where
Yeah.
the one was.
I don't even know that you go that high, because mostly all of it was postage. What if we say
1,000? Yeah.
and then in your postage? Are you gonna continue with the postage?
Once we get the new visitor notice, yeah, and then for the remainder of this year until I run out of visitor guides, it probably won't be much longer.
Okay, so we'll set that up.
Which, did the girls call, and we need some?
I delivered it
Did you?
yesterday,
Thank you,
or
Marty,
actually
very much.
Monday.
I was
I got
so
a big
proud,
one.
I was so proud of the housekeepers, they're the ones that said, hey, we need more of these around. I love that when we don't have.
Yeah, I
any.
delivered them on Monday.
Thanks.
What was that other
I
operation?
know, it's kinda high, we're gonna let that one up.
Yeah.
That's where we started using postage.
Oh, you moved it into there?
We moved it
So
into
that's
other
where the
because,
postage is.
right,
So maybe we need more postage.
yeah, we do need more postage.
Business cards.
Business cards was for the tourism board. I think we also did the plaques for the
I see what you did. I don't know if that's enough postage.
probably
I would
not.
go here, and that's
There you go.
just what I would do, but then
That's
see
fine.
what we have to.
I agree.
That's good.
And then you really shouldn't have anything budgeted in other operating. It's just when a kind of a catch-all, I hate saying a miscellaneous.
That's fine.
That's where things that are unexpected. No small equipment, and if you need any laptops,
Unless, are we in tourism?
tablets.
Unless you wanted to look at purchasing tablets.
Yes.
That's,
That was
you
one
could
of my
take it out of your
questions
own
today.
fund. I know previously they were supplied by the city,
Mhm.
Are-
for the board.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that's,
But it wasn't a purchase, it was, they were already on hand, so we just,
and we had agreed, I think it was in January or February, to receive new ones. And then after that, we
The whole-
lost it.
yeah, we didn't have the, we weren't able to,
Well,
Purchase
like,
new tablets.
like this one I have today, the
Cool.
last thing I received from you was from July the 11th.
that's odd, because I just
Yeah.
sent something yesterday.
So,
I didn't get it either.
so,
So these are wicked.
and then sometimes I get stuff in this and then I don't, and it's just, you know, and I'll charge it for a whole day and then it won't even come on.
Yeah.
So,
So is that an expense you
I-
wanna take out of your tourism budget to purchase new tablets for the tourism board?
I believe so, I think because I purchased one myself because I've been asking you since January,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Well, I'd like to come back here on this conversation, because we've had this before. You use Google Docs to load the information, and Google Docs can be delivered to your email, to your mobile phone, to anywhere you want. Honestly, I don't need another one of these. I don't need to carry it, I don't need to worry about powering it up. Only thing I need is access to Google Docs, and this does it.
I agree. I use my laptop. I really don't.
All
use
we
the
have to
tablet.
do is,
I use a tablet because
Well,
I don't have one of those good phones.
well,
Hello,
Well,
Dad.
I bought
Maybe
it
I need to buy a new
I mean, we
phone.
don't,
So-
maybe we all don't need to replace, maybe we just replace a few of them instead of all 5 brand new ones all at the same time. Because we are working with a lower budget. If, you know, I will opt out. I don't need a new tablet. I really don't use it. I use my laptop at home, so maybe what we could do is maybe just replace a couple of them and then work on replacing a few
Well,
more
I bought
the
an
next year.
iPad too.
What's that?
I bought an iPad because I just got so frustrated.
I understand that.
I would
So-
agree with you, Amanda. I'll
But not
certainly opt
everybody's
out.
gonna be like you when they come in.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not
but-
everybody's gonna have the availability, so
As a
I would
matter-
say that going on down the road for someone who's not equipped like you are,
Mhm.
that we do have them available for them to use.
But we know this is gonna be pretty much who it is for the next year, don't we? So why don't we just replace a few of them instead of all of them?
So,
Go ahead.
just when if and when we start meeting physically again, I will start uploading documents as I am now for you guys that have Google Docs. But I would recommend that you have a tablet or something in front of you rather than print materials. So everyone should have some type of tablet in front of them so that you can go through the meeting.
Or a laptop? Would a
Or a
laptop work?
So if you
I
bring your
brought mine?
laptop, that's fine.
Okay.
If you don't have a laptop, you should have some type of
I
tablet.
wanna carry one of these, I'm not carrying my laptop, I'm not unplugging that sucker in every
So
day.
if anybody
I'm doing that.
doesn't have their own laptop, I recommend, or a tablet, I recommend that we purchase some type of,
I agree. I think that, you know, it's been a frustration since I came on the board. You know, like, you could bring your
Just-
things in, but at least we have them available to people who don't have that access.
Yeah.
And which line item was that, Tom?
Cheryl,
Small equipment.
small equipment.
maybe if we put just
I'm,
3 of them.
Trying to get the IT guy to give me a quote, a guesstimate. I don't know what they cost.
Okay.
Anybody?
No.
They're expensive. I know that. They've gotta be at least $400 or $500 a piece if you're not talking like an iPad. An iPad's probably more like 1,000 a piece.
We'll go with 5 and then we'll
Yeah.
see what he says. Okay, now we're down to local festival funding. I have no idea what's gonna happen with 2020. So far, you've spent $6,700 and I know you pulled back. Has anything been allocated for the rest of the year?
Yes.
About how
So
much?
the March grants that were,
I think it comes to.
We're frozen. We actually will pay, and I've got that paperwork for
I
you,
think it's
Cheryl.
3250.
For a meeting
I think is
after.
where we're at on them, Marty.
With their, for
That's
all
what
4 of
Los
those
Angeles- Los Angeles
events.
County was 2,500,
Right.
Branson Gravel was 700.
Right.
The Fox Theater was 750,
Yes,
and, A.R. Mitchell was 2,000,
yes.
which
And
came to
that's-
3250.
Yeah, and that's if they, yeah.
I get 5,950. Tell me those again.
Oh, I might have added, I might have not added them all.
2,000, 1,000,
Oh, you're right,
750.
you're right, it's, you're right.
Okay, and then
And you
plus
have
what
one-
you've spent so far, and then will there be any more even after that?
We have
From December.
we have a balance of how much left in case something came up in the fall.
I have it written down, I don't have it with me. Out of 10,000, right?
It was
out of
just
10,000. And so.
So you're at,
Yeah, and that
Wow.
doesn't look like for C
Have
anybody's
your
gonna give any more money for the rest of the year. This is going downhill
Grants
fast.
isn't the only one they need to check. The other ones are, they have to submit their
so we haven't seen
invoices.
anybody yet.
No, we haven't seen no invoices.
So now that got into 12,000,
So we're 2,000 over.
so we'll leave it at that, right?
Yeah.
Right,
So you're not going to entertain any other grants for the remainder of the year?
right.
I'm confused. I didn't think we made it up to the 10,000 by
We
what
did.
So where's the 12 coming from?
The 12 was, there was previous,
previous.
commitments for extensions on the A.R. Mitchell Museum and the
Control.
Artocade. Or there was a 6-month extension, it's $650 a month, so 650 times 12, so that should,
And that went into,
I think
20.
I kind of remember that, but it wasn't, yeah.
Sorry,
It
Sharon,
wasn't
can you
made
just
super
hold those
clear.
numbers there for a second? I just want to get caught up on my notes here.
And that was based on last year's grant?
It was a 12.
Yes,
We
based
gave
on
it
last
till
year's
March
numbers,
31st.
yeah.
Okay.
The number I have here, 4137, is wrong, and now we're at 12,687. And where did we come up with that $10,000 figure? Remind me that one again?
We cut the $70,000, or we cut the $50,000 budget.
By
When we
60,000.
We cut it to 40,000.
Well, then this takes us full circle back to side, where we're not certain if we really want to do this. Is there other places where we could pull back so that we can maybe fund, in this case, $2,000, $2,600, or even more? Is that right, Si? Was that kind of the thrust of your point?
I'm not 100% sure where you were at. Say that again. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay. Previously, as I recall, was $60,000 was the number that we were trying to save
Yes.
from the budget,
Yeah.
and the quick line was we took it out of the grant. But then the question that you posed was, do we really want to do that?
Right.
And so now that we've come all the way to this point, and we've already knocked into it by 2,600, but we've also knocked into other lines with other savings, so perhaps that 2,600 is offset. Perhaps we can go back now and look and say that $10,000 budgeted number for grants is no longer in effect. Maybe it's now 20,000.
That was just for this year.
No, I get that.
You know,
I get that.
So my suggestion for next year is that for new events, we normally budget $20,000. In the last 2 years, we've only had one come up
That's a new event? you
with a
mean?
new event, which was,
Fox?
no, it
No,
was,
with the comedy thing.
the comedy.
And we
Oh.
never
We
spent
need
that
10,000.
It is being proposed for 2021.
But it's not a new one.
But it's not a new one. That
No,
would
it's
be
not
another
a new
grant.
one.
That's not new.
So my thing on new ones is that we take the $20,000 budget and cut it in half.
Into 10.
We take it at 10.
But that's new events.
And my-
Only new events. That's
And
not
my-
something that's already been going on.
And my reasoning for that is, we have a Santa Fe Trail 200-year birthday.
Anniversary.
And we want to support that. So that would be a new event that would be happening, and that's the event that I would like to help in that one. So I would like to leave that one there, or cut that budget by 10,000. You agree, Si?
Yeah, I was just being a little out of, because I was trying to see Cheryl's final figures here.
So where we landed, is you have $15,000 to spread around.
So you can take that right to that line item.
So then, as Camilla said, it's 10,000 for new events, So we really need to go back and subdivide that $12,600 figure to say how much was actual, previous events, and how much is new events that fall into the $10,000 number, because I don't see that.
Should it be like a line item thing,
Yes.
you mean? That's kind of, because I
It is-
wasn't
it
aware
is-
of the
it is a line
20,000.
item. It is a line
Help me
item.
see that, because I
The
don't.
local festival funding was adjusted at $70,000, and $20,000 of that was for a new event. It isn't broken out.
That's what we're trying to follow.
Oh,
So you want to break it
I'm
out?
sorry about that, but
We were
that's,
both
but
not aware of that.
but that's what it was,
So
20,000.
what you want is
That's
a new line
news to
item
us.
to reflect,
Your conversation.
right, so
That's
put
all.
$10,000 in a new line saying new events.
I didn't know that you didn't.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, see, we were behind the tail on that.
But the total there is
Behind the dog.
70,000 in there, 20,000 that was for new events.
And so
Okay.
50 is out, is.
Is for regular,
intended
regular
for
grants
regular.
or,
Right.
and I would like to
events.
keep that the same.
Okay.
So now what is we're projecting 12,000, for this, for 2020. What does that mean for 2021? We're back to my original question.
We're
I'm
gonna
still not really
project
understanding.
$50,000 for 2021.
So we can change that, then I think that was my original question, was that
Right.
even though we're lower this year for 2020,
What is it-
why
what is it
can't we
make
just make a higher number for 2021?
In,
And we did. So 40,000 goes toward repeating events and 10,000 is for new events. Out of that 50,000, is that correct?
I would rather have the 50,000 because we will use it all if
Yeah.
everything goes back.
If everything goes back, we're
If
gonna
everything
use
goes
it.
back, we will use it. If not, we can always pull it back. Like we
That
did
number
with-
should actually be
60,000?
60.
It should be 60.
So-
And then 10 goes to new events and 50 stays to old events.
And you can change that line item so that way if we do get a new member, then when they do read that, it will show.
That
So by
would be helpful
Cheryl,
for this
Sorry about that.
by Cheryl doing that means that we are over budget by $44,000. And we either have to decide where we're gonna take it from or see if we can use part of those funds from, an amount in our savings account, is that right?
Right, so ending fund balance for 2019 is 215,000. So that's your secret stash. If the 2020, if our projections are right around where we're saying, it's gonna add another $95,000 to your ending fund balance.
But
Or that's also saying that you have $95,000 that you can work with
Okay.
You're saying
this
that
year, which means you might have more festival funding, more advertising.
or start to work on a booklet.
Yeah.
If you could get it done by the end of the year, you have about, I wouldn't say 90, let's just say 70,000, because we may have forgotten something, so we'll be conservative.
Right.
So that's.
Frank,
fine.
can you scroll that back down towards the bottom, the bottom line figures?
So in improving this budget, then we would all know that we're going to spend more money, we're planning on this year, more money than we will take in, and we will and we will use some of our savings to do that. And that protects the tourism board from knowing they can spend money on local events and stuff.
Okay, I just want to go back, just to make sure I totally got this detail, because it's an important one. Under local festival and funding, all the way over in notes now, you say 50,000 in regular events, 10,000 in new events, that's our 60,000. And by spending that 60,000, that's how we get the 44,000 negative or in the red number.
And we use
Okay.
it from our savings account to help the city.
Marty said something here that you agreed with that I want to caution. Because you gave her an absolute and she goes to the market or the public and says, nope, we're not doing any more funding this year. The caveat is based on the current situation of where we are now. As you mentioned, if all of a sudden somebody comes up with a coronavirus solution and let's say by October we're up and running per normal, now we want to go back and adjust things, and somebody comes out of the hat with a new event, we want to fund that. We want to make sure that she's not telling the public or the market, hey, sorry, there's no more funding for this year.
for 2020, correct?
you
Then we have to
said-
be careful on that point.
Well, you said a
Because
big
she has to
if.
be clear to say that.
The big if you said is that there's a miracle with coronavirus.
And the point is to
And-
make sure she understands it's not an absolute. We
Right.
may have a different reality here.
People are gonna come to her if they needed funding and say funding. She has all obligations to come to us and say that if we wanna deny them because we're saying we're sticking to our budget, then it's up to us
Right,
to do
you know.
that. She's gonna, if Joe somebody comes and says, I want a request for the tourism board, Marty's under obligation to present that to us, okay?
Yeah.
That's
So
not a
you've
decision,
had-
that's not a decision I make. It's-
Have you
She's
had
gonna come
anybody
to
come
us.
to you and ask for
Yes.
new funding and new events or concurring previous historical events?
The Bicentennial, Santa Fe Trail Bicentennial Group, is looking at doing a fundraiser in February, and so they were going to approach the tourism board for help with that.
And that's in
Funding.
February of next year.
Right, so they would be applying for a grant, but it would not come out of this year's budget, it would come
Come out of next year's budget.
January budget.
Right.
It could be approved this year to be granted next year out of the next budget.
How about historical or what we now call regular events for 2020? Have you been approached by any of the regulars, be it the Artocade or the Mitchell Museum or any of the others?
No, we just reviewed those.
I'm sorry?
We just
We
reviewed
just
those.
reviewed those.
No, my question was, have you been approached by them recently?
For additional funding?
For additional that we
funding?
gave them, no.
Artocade is redoing their original application, actually Art Cartopia. What Rodney had done was he had lumped both the parade and the museum funding into one bucket, and since the Artocade is not going to be taking place, he's redoing his application for just Art Cartopia. So that will be forthcoming.
And just always remind you, we do have a reserve. We can, if it's an event that we feel that we can support, we could have a special meeting on it as to whether we want to fund it, you know, but the big if you put in there is if it's COVID is gone away.
Okay.
That was the big question.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we're always open. If things do get better, we have saved money from this budget. You know, when we cut the $50,000 out of the grants initially, we have saved. You
I
know,
think the
so.
safest way is just to keep,
Right.
we'll still accept grant
Just keep
applications.
rolling with the small
Yeah, but
budget that
that's
we
okay.
have.
Keep it open.
We're not gonna turn
that
anybody
protects
away.
us and protects
Right,
them.
and then continue into 2021 with a $260,000 budget.
Cause someone might come in October wanting something for
Yeah.
February, March, and we're gonna, you know, they might get in their grants for December, but they really don't want them till next year. And we've gotta see what our budget is, what this rest of this era that we're going through, if it continues on into December.
So-
If we get shut down again, that, you know, there's a lot of ifs in there, and we just gotta pray that we keep moving right
So
along.
we have a
For me,
shortfall
myself.
of $9,000 for the first quarter. So
Right.
say the second quarter is not as bad as the first quarter, you know, and say our third quarter is even a little better.
Yeah, and we don't know what
So,
we're gonna be
so
collecting.
we're actually conserving at a really good.
You know,
point.
October, November, December might come in with our sales tax, the hotel might kill it, so we might have more money in that budget there.
And to go with that, right now you have $90,000 that you cut back, everybody cut back, you've saved $90,000.
And that's what's left over essentially in the budget as of today, right now.
2020.
And
Yes.
as of projected as well, right?
That's what I'm saying, we're
Okay.
projecting $90,000 under expended,
Okay.
and that would be available to you. So when second quarter comes in and we get a good idea where it is, and it looks like we're gonna land on 250, you would have that available for an event in
event.
December if something
In
comes up.
December, if someone wants to come.
And otherwise, if we didn't use it for an event, now that's what would go into our savings
correct.
or our reserve, correct? Okay.
So we are running on a conservative mode
Right.
for this year and next year. The only thing, Cheryl, that I would like to possibly by the end of the year add a line item to this budget or I feel that we always have to have a reserve in replacement of the bus we have,
The trolley.
The trolley.
I looked at, the city has a line item for fleet, and I think that we need that because how long have we had this trolley now?
2 years.
2 years? And it's a vehicle.
Right.
And
And
a
we
vehicle-
always talked about buying a van, so it would be less,
I-
and maybe we need to start a little reserve to get a van.
I
to
feel
start
a
going.
line item for that, but I don't know if it could be put in at any point
So
or.
you would just need to designate how much of your ending fund balance that you wanna put away. You wouldn't put it as a line item because that means you wanna spend it.
Right.
And you're not ready to spend it.
No.
You only budget it when you're ready.
Right.
Okay.
So, right now you have 215 sitting in reserves. You tell me, we want 50% put away or, what would you say, committed or new fleet.
Now, could we do that today or
No, that has to be probably through a regular board.
through a regular board meeting? And I think we really need to look at that because 5 years goes by fast and then a trolley's $300 and some thousand.
Right, and
You know, and-
when
and
we
I
were going
think
to the
that
motels,
we-
I thought that was a great idea, picking people up at the motels and bringing them to town. That trolley was hard to do. If we had a smaller van, you know, we knew how many people were going into the trolley at one time, and a smaller van might be economical to us, and it would be quicker to get around, and they move a little bit. That is the future. That is the future of our lives.
I just think we need a fleet, a line item for a
The
fleet.
bicycle racks on the back.
It's not a line item, you're just designating fund balance.
Fund balance,
So
yes.
you just create a resolution and you say, we would like, of the 2019 ending fund balance, we want so much set aside for the
For
trolley.
that, yeah, okay.
Or for
Or
the fleet, don't lock
fleet,
don't lock
yeah,
into the
just say
trolley.
fleet.
Right.
Yeah, and it's called committing your funds, so that
Does
we're
that sound
assigning
good,
it.
Jared?
What does anybody think about that? Because that's future, that's our future.
No matter when we put money in or not, we should always, put money aside for future transportations.
Right.
To do this first trolley, we put money aside for 10 years. If we didn't put just a little amount every year aside,
And then we have this new state park coming.
Yeah, and that is something to think about, like I said, add the bicycle rack, because, yeah.
Just a quick question, any ideas if they'll do the trolley at Christmas time, or we don't even think about it?
We won't till we get there.
not until we find out about if COVID's really gonna have this second
Yeah.
storm.
Can I ask about the last line item, building lease, storage, rental, $2,100 projected? What is that for?
For the trolley and the tourism trailer.
For storing them?
Yeah.
I bet we can improve on that.
It's a nice storage area, in and out, very easy
I wanna
accessible.
ask another question. Can the tourism board seek revenue from other means, or are we just stuck with accepting revenue from the hotels?
One of the things that I want to touch on is the RVOs. Is that how we?
Yeah.
Airbnbs.
Airbnbs.
We're not collecting any tax from them.
You will be effective July 1st.
July 1st.
We actually should have started May 1st, but COVID hit.
Do you know how many?
There's a lot of money out there.
How many?
There's a lot of money out there
You don't
for that.
know.
I don't know
We're
how,
not collecting
I
from the
won't
city
know.
of Trinidad, so they have to be within.
There are a lot of ones in the city.
I think city had,
City down.
side had kind of a figure as to how much money we are losing. The tourism board is losing from them.
I think that on a normal year, we're probably losing somewhere between 50 and 60,000. So there's about 80 rooms in Trinidad if they're open all in one night randomly, and that means that some of them only have, maybe some houses have 5 or 6 rooms inside, or one has only 1 room. But I think we figured out that it was like a small hotel, like the amount of whatever probably like the Super 8 or the Days Inn, something that has around 60 rooms in Trinidad. It would be comparable to that, so.
And
So
again, the
that's-
city
so that's
has
a
passed a
huge-
resolution on how they're gonna fee that.
Excuse me, on the Airbnbs?
On the Airbnbs,
We'll
has the
collect-
city council passed a resolution on how what the fee structure is going to be? That's
It's
already
the
in
same,
place?
it's the
law,
same.
3%.
It's the same. as-
Okay, so, and that is already taken effect?
It's effective July 1st, yes.
Okay.
Only
And then-
Airbnb, we can't figure out how to get home away or VRBO. So we're working on that one.
Okay, and so
Well, that's
then-
a start, that's great.
That's a start,
So
yeah.
maybe that's only 30%, then maybe 30 rooms. Do you know how many letters you sent out or anything? No.
We haven't, Airbnb is handling it for us.
Oh,
If
that's
they're
right.
enrolled with Airbnb,
Okay.
they're gonna automatically tax it and we get paid by Airbnb. We won't
Right.
know who. We don't
Oh,
know the
gotcha.
properties, we're just gonna get a lump sum.
Gotcha.
And we had a conversation previously about Tower 64, and I've gone and I've looked at it, and based on my indications, they are within the city limits, and I don't understand why we're not getting revenue from them.
It's, when they did that, when they did Santa Fe Trail, that is still county property, not city property.
They have to annex. They have to annex their own property. The same thing with their budget, Summit.
But the police department says it's within the city limits, and there's a speed change right there, and there's signage right at the gate of that place.
You'd have to
So,
go.
so I'm just curious,
What you would have to
say,
do
what's
is
the
go-
conflict here?
What you would have to do is go to the courthouse and see if they've annexed that piece of property into the city.
Okay.
Normally, when you connect to the city sewer, you have to annex
No.
your property.
Except for that property, he's partially right about that, because that property was given city sewer and
It
utilities
is.
without being annexed.
Yeah, and it
It's
should
not
have
annexed.
been.
Yeah, it should have been.
It
So-
should have been, but it's not.
So where we are on that is, it's unfinished business, it's a potential revenue source that needs to be readdressed with city council, is that where we are?
Well, it's up to him to annex it.
So,
The city already missed.
yeah, so the way I understood it, I looked into it at one point. The city did not do that at the point in which they gave him, city utilities, so now, I don't know for sure, but now I think the business owner has to agree about being annexed into the city, because I think, does anybody know the answer for true? And, yeah, so I think when they gave him sewer and water, they did not get an agreement to annex him into the city, so it still sits in the county, although he has city service.
And the part I'm a little unclear about is, the city has to ask him and he has to agree to be annexed?
That's a question
No,
for
see,
us.
when I had a piece of property, I bought a piece of property. For me to get, I can get water and utility, I can get water and power, but I could not get city sewer unless I annexed that piece of property. So I annexed it. So I was able to hook onto the sewer. That's the city process. So you would have to get with somebody in utilities probably, or.
Well, what's interesting to me is my property that I owned in Fort Collins was annexed, and nobody on the street was asked, hey, do you want to be annexed into the city? No, it was just done. So I'm a little curious to why.
I think way back when they did all that, they opted out, and the city let them opt out. Now they've gotta go back in and say, we wanna be annexed, and they're not gonna do that.
So it was administrative error is what you're saying.
Not
They'll have to
saying,
get with somebody.
you know, so they have to come down and say they wanna be annexed, so
Alright.
that's probably not gonna happen.
But it is a revenue source. That
It is a revenue
originally, when we did Airbnbs, VRBOs, and that property, we estimated it at about 80 grand a year. But then we found out we couldn't attain that money from that establishment. So it cut down our amounts that we could receive.
Okay, just absolutely just one more thing to ask, and that is, going forward, whether we keep the current welcome center or we move the thing, we redesign the thing, is there a possibility of bringing in, let's call them retail outlets, that would provide additional funding for the tourism board, and that's legal,
And
that that's acceptable, we
I
can do
think
that?
that is something that we need to start looking into.
Yes.
To bring retail, or just, I went to one in Colorado where they not necessarily sold stuff there, which is revenue, which they did. You could sell candy, you could sell stuff, but they also had in their highways a little display for different stores that they turned around once a month to ask them to go shopping at these shops. Not that they're gonna sell them out of these little containers, because they're not gonna do that. That welcome center's not gonna do it. But what they're gonna say is, if you're interested in that product, the store is downtown. So go to the store downtown. That was a great idea for them. And she said they did get a lot of referrals, because there was 10 different display formats for stores downtown. And those people would, if you wanted that, you would go downtown to the display area. But I do think
At least 50% of the visitors that I receive at the Welcome Center are asking for some type of trinket or memento.
I agree with you.
Something
I
that they want.
definitely agree with you.
And with Tease Me, Treat Me closed, my only option, well, I had you on the list, but generally, it's like, can I find something at Walmart or Safeway or something?
Yeah, I am bringing more and more stuff in, Colorado souvenirs, that I thought I would never do. So there you go.
So if we had,
that would probably be a great place to do it.
if we had that stream of revenue, it would
Yeah,
really
especially
add.
T-shirts. And I got a wonderful place to get T-shirts, let me tell you. So, but I just don't have any room in my store. I thought of moving, but
Well, Jeff had a good, I'm sorry.
I just trying to get clear here. I thought I saw something in the city manager's memorandum of understanding that says the Welcome Center could not do this.
at one point.
No,
we couldn't.
at some point you couldn't, but,
And that's when we were funded by them,
if you're,
right?
But the current one, it's in that letter that says you can't.
no, I've contacted
I'll
Kathy
go back
Ritter
and
at the
look at it.
state, and she did say that yes, you can have retail sales within your,
As a matter of fact, it was
facility.
one of her recommendations that we do, when we do a new welcome center, that we could put retail
have a
in it.
retail sales in
She
it.
thought that
Jeff
was
had
an
a great
excellent
idea not too long ago. He said if Tease Me, Treat Me is actually gonna go out of business and they're not gonna sell that anymore, is there an option that we could purchase, either purchase their stock or sell it on consignment for them or something along those lines. So-
I don't wanna discredit you, but I think you ought to go at other sources for T-shirts and that, not do it yourself.
Well, he just thought since they have that
Just buy
stuff
their
already
stock.
there,
The stock is there, it's
Right.
it's
Well,
yeah,
we
not
have to be careful there.
continuing, but gathering their stock and selling it.
gathering their stock, yeah.
Scott, just as information
Yeah.
in the past, we have produced Bat Masterson posters and sold those. We have received grants from the Colorado Tourism Office for additional funding. There are these other great ways that we can do it. It just, no matter what we do, we always have to figure out how much effort we put into something, but how much we get back. So, but we can.
Kind of
Really in the
goes full
precedent.
circle with the division of duties of our tourism board manager and that part of the conversation, just to help me get a better perspective on, what is out there. And so, is there a portion of that
Sure.
letter that talks about, can the Welcome Center recommend or have advertising material, and let's call it a brochure stand, so that if I want to advertise my restaurant, I could pay the Welcome Center? Can't do that, right? That's what I thought.
Cannot do that.
That's right.
We cannot be a source of advertisement. We also
Right.
cannot advertise. There's a certain codicil in the contract that says that every publication that is actually given out at the Welcome Center cannot have X amount, I'm not sure what the percentage of marijuana advertisements as well. We also cannot do real estate advertising.
And then we have to be
Sure.
careful too, if
Yeah,
we're gonna
let's
sell
let you know.
T-shirts
Yeah.
out of there and also
retail.
Somebody else, now the Welcome Center is competing with a local business, we have to be careful of that as well.
That would
So
be
in-
competing,
so
trust me,
in-
we need it.
So in
that
the
would
corner of
be-
the visitor center, Scott, I do have a whole Trinidad section. So
Yeah.
if you brought me brochures or menus or anything for the bomb pizza or the coffee can or whatever it is, I can have that in that corner.
So I'm
But-
I need
okay.
to sneak out, I have a meeting in
All right.
11.
Cheryl.
But the tablets, I think you can get now. I would just purchase them now.
Yeah.
And I talked to the IT guy, 1,200 a piece, so we're just gonna do 3, right?
Right.
Okay, so can you get with James?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then can we have it so that my Google Docs comes to my phone and not the tablet? Or my personal tablet?
I don't, it doesn't matter to me where the destination is. I upload it onto Google Docs. Wherever you retrieve it is entirely up to you. It is that specific
so then
account. So
okay.
the Trinidad Tourism account, so you'll have to have the Trinidad Tourism account on your computer or on your personal tablet or
So-
whatever. It goes to that account. That's the email account.
So that's
But
all
how
I
you
need is
retrieve
that,
it is
all I need is access to that account and then I got it.
right.
Okay, wonderful. And we're still working on loading up the minutes, because I don't have the minutes for 2020 at all.
They're in
No,
a
I
folder
do.
in Google Docs. It's an
I
entire
have.
folder that says minutes on it, board packets.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
So
much,
my
Cheryl.
suggestion is probably we'll meet again, or you should meet again before we finalize the city's budget. I'm gonna say late September,
Right.
and
Under that
then we'll know, we'll have an
column,
idea about
anything
second
for
quarter.
2020.
We'll see where everything else is falling, okay?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you, Sean.
It was a great job on your spread there.
And can we get a copy of that showing all the way through July, because mine only shows May and
Yes.
some of what we talked about today?
Yes,
So,
I'll shoot it to Marty and she'll get it to you.
okay. Thank you very much.
Nice seeing you too. It's been a while, how's
Yeah,
that? Tom, you too, nice seeing you. Nice, we see each other, but not on my laptop. I'm not turning on that camera, honey.
Anything else? We'll adjourn this meeting at 10:43.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry I got
See you
to
later.
go.
Bye. I'm gonna turn this back to you, Marty.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
help.
you. Are we getting, well,